Question 1. In a modern context of enterprise network implementation, Mr. Lewis, a junior network administrator at a financial institution, has been instructed to deploy a new Cisco switch. While configuring the switch, he connects AE to faster than a tone and issues the commands switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN 10. Later, users report no connectivity. After reviewing the switch port status, Mr. Lewis finds that the interface is in administratively down status. What is the most appropriate next action he should take to resolve the issue? A. Configure the VLAN 10 on the router to ensure inter-VLAN routing is active. B. Use the no shutdown command on interface faster than a tone. C. Enable port security on faster than a tone. D. Create VLAN 10 on the switch with VLAN 10 in global config mode. Answer. Correct answer. B. Use the no shutdown command on interface faster than a tone. Explanation. The administratively down status indicates that the interface is manually disabled. The correct resolution is to bring the interface up using the no shutdown command in interface configuration mode. This is common oversight for new administrators. While creating VLAN 10 on the switch, VLAN 10 is necessary if it doesn't already exist. It would not resolve administratively down status. Port security is not related to interface state unless it triggers shutdown due to violations. Inter-VLAN routing is irrelevant if the port is down. According to Cisco iOS operation, interface states must be administratively enabled before participating in Layer 2 or Layer 3 operations. Question 2. When considering modern enterprise networks, which of the following accurately describes a key drawback of using a physical bus topology in comparison to a star topology? A. A single node failure can bring down the entire network. B. It increases the reliability of the network due to redundant paths. C. Troubleshooting becomes easier as the cable paths are straightforward. D. Collisions are minimized due to the centralized structure. Answer. Correct answer. A. A single node failure can bring down the entire network. Explanation. In a physical bus topology, all devices share a single backbone cable. If that cable or terminator fails, the entire segment can go down, making it highly vulnerable to single points of failure. This is in contrast to a star topology, where individual device failures do not affect the entire network. Cisco's training emphasizes the limitations of legacy topologies like bus, especially in scalability and fault isolation. Options B and D are actually advantages of star or mesh topologies, not bus. Option C is incorrect since troubleshooting a shared medium can be more complex due to signal reflection and device dependency. Question 3. A demonstrated by a recent deployment is Chowdhury needs to configure NAT on a Cisco router to allow inside hosts to access the internet using a single public IP. She has already configured the inside and outside interfaces and the access list. However, users still cannot browse the web, which command most likely has not been configured and would resolve the issue. A. IP NAT outside. B. IP NAT inside source list 1 interface serial 00 overload. C. Access list 1 permit any. D. IP at inside source static 192.168.1.10203.0.1.1.3.1. Answer. Correct answer. B. IPNet inside source list 1 interface serial 00 overload. Explanation. To enable dynamic NAT with PAT port address translation, this command maps the access list to the outside interface and enables address overloading. Without this command, the router knows which interfaces are inside and outside but does not perform address translation. Option A merely identifies an interface as outside. Option C is only a supporting access list, not sufficient on its own. Option D is used for static NAT for a single host, not for dynamic PAT. Cisco's NAT configuration guides clearly state that the key binding command IP at inside source list is what triggers NAT functionality. Question 4. The traditional approach to Layer 2 device discovery in Cisco networks relies heavily on specific protocols. Which of the following is a primary limitation of Cisco Discovery Protocol CDP in multi-vendor environments? A. It cannot identify devices on different VLANs. B. It only supports HIP networks. C. It is a Cisco proprietary protocol and lacks cross-vendor compatibility. D. It requires SMP to function. Answer. Correct answer. C. It is a Cisco proprietary protocol and lacks cross-vendor compatibility. Explanation: CDP is Cisco proprietary, meaning it works only with Cisco devices unless specifically supported by another vendor. This limits its use in heterogeneous environments. LAEP, Linked Layer Discovery Protocol, a standards-based alternative, is more appropriate in such cases. Option is incorrect because CDP operates at Layer 2 and can detect directly connected devices regardless of VLAN unless trunking issues exist. CDP supports both IP and IP in newer versions, so B is incorrect. SMP is not required for CDP, contrary to option D. The ICND exam expects students to understand the protocol, scope, use cases, and limitations. Question 5. Under the assumption the router has two interfaces, Gig0 connected to 192.168.100.024 and Gigon connected to 100.1.1.024. Is fairer configures static route to reach 192.168.300.024 through 100.1.1.2. However, the traffic does not forward. What could be possible reason the static route fails to operate properly despite being correctly configured? A. The administrative distance of the static route is too high. B. The next hop IP is not reachable from the routing table of Route A. C. There is no default gateway on Route A. D. The subnet mask of the static route must match the destination mask exactly. Answer. Correct answer. B. The next hop IP is not reachable from the routing table of Route A. Explanation. For a static route to be valid, the next hop IP must be resolvable in the routing table. If 101.1.2 is not reachable, e.g. no connected route or ARP resolution fails, the route is considered unusable. Cisco iOS verifies the reachability of next hop addresses for recursive lookup. Option is incorrect because static routes have an administrative distance of 1 and will override dynamic routes unless manually altered. Option C is irrelevant as a default gateway applies to host configurations. Option D is a misconception. Cisco allows summarization, and the subnet mask in the static route defines the destination network size. Question 6. Focusing specifically on access control, what is the best explanation of why a standard ACL should be placed as close to the destination as possible in the Cisco network? A. To minimize unnecessary traffic across the network. B. Because standard ACLs only filter based on destination IP. C. To allow all traffic through and inspect it later. D. Because standard ACLs only filter based on source IP. Answer. Correct answer. D. Because standard ACLs only filter based on source IP. Explanation. Standard ACLs filter only based on source IP address. To avoid blocking unintended traffic, the ACL is applied closer to the destination so that other unrelated traffic can pass through unaffected. This contrasts with extended ACLs, which are placed closer to the source because they can filter on protocol source and destination IPs. Cisco ACL guidelines teach this placement logic to ensure precision filtering. Option applies to extended ACLs. Option B is incorrect. It filters based on source IP. Option C is vague and not how ACLs function in practice. Question 7. The core principles of IP addressing include significant structural changes from IP. Which of the following is not a valid reason for adopting IP in enterprise networks? A. Increased address space allows unique global addressing. B. Built-in security through IPsec support. C. Mandatory use of NAT to conserve public addresses. D. Simplified header format for faster processing. Answer. Correct answer. C. Mandatory use of NAT to conserve public addresses. Explanation. IP was designed to eliminate the need for NAT thanks to its massive address space. Using NAT in IP is discouraged as it breaks end-to-end connectivity and defeats one of the protocol's design goals. Options A, B, and D are well-established benefits of IP. According to Cisco and RFC 4291, NAT is optional and generally avoided in IP unless there are specific policy or transition requirements. Question 8. From a practical standpoint, the technician observes that a user cannot access the internet despite having a valid IP configuration. The default gateway is correctly configured and the user can ping internal devices. What is the best next step in troubleshooting? A. Replace the patch cable. B. Verify DNS server settings on the host. C. Check the MAC address of the default gateway. D. Perform A password recovery on the switch. Answer. Correct answer. B. Verify DNS server settings on the host. Explanation. If internal pings work but internet sites fail, DNS is likely the problem. The user has connectivity but cannot resolve domain names. ICND troubleshooting steps prioritize checking logical layer configurations DNS gateway before physical replacements. Option is irrelevant since internal connectivity exists. Option C is too low level for this symptom. Option D is unrelated. Cisco troubleshooting methodology encourages verifying DNS early when web access is failing but pinning IP addresses succeeds. Question 9. The effectiveness of IP is demonstrated when clients receive dynamic IPs. What happens if a Cisco router is configured with the DIP excluded address 192.168.1.192.168.1.1.0 command prior to setting up? A. Clients receive IP addresses between 192.168.1.1 and 192.168.1.1.0. B. The router will reject any discover requests. C. The specified range will be excluded for AP allocations. D. It sets static IPs for those addresses automatically. Answer. Correct answer. C. The specified range will be excluded for AP allocations. Explanation. This command reserves the specified address range and prevents IEP from leasing those IPs to clients. It allows manual IP assignment or usage for routers, servers, or printers. It does not allocate these as static addresses or reject IEP packets. The ICND exam emphasizes proper IEP exclusion range configuration to avoid IP conflicts. Without this, overlaps can occur, affecting network stability. Question 10. With the advent of scalable networks, ISTA Rajan is tasked with deciding between static and dynamic routing for a new branch. The network has multiple redundant paths and link failure response is critical. Which type of routing should he implement and why? A. Static routing, because it reduces CPU load on the router. B. Static routing, because it automatically adapts to topology changes. C. Dynamic routing, because it adapts to changes and supports redundancy. D. Dynamic routing, because it guarantees better bandwidth usage. Answer. Correct answer. C. Dynamic routing, because it adapts to changes and supports redundancy. Explanation. Dynamic routing protocols like OSPF automatically recalculate routes upon link failures, making them ideal for redundant, fault-tolerant networks. Static routing is manual, requires reconfiguration after topology changes, and is error-prone at scale. ICND emphasizes choosing dynamic routing for environments needing adaptability. Option is true in constrained environments but not suitable here. Option B is false. Static routes do not adapt. Option D is partially correct, but bandwidth optimization is protocol dependent. Question 11. During the process of configuring inter-VLAN communication in a medium-sized organization, Rivera creates VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 on switcher and assigns faster than Etone and faster than network to these VLANs, respectively. She then connects switcher to router using faster than at 24, configuring the router for router on a stick. Despite correct IP addressing and encapsulation on the router subinterfaces, hosts in VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 are able to communicate. What is the most likely issue? A. Switches faster than at 24 interfaces not set to trunk mode. B. VLANs 10 and 20 were not assigned IP addresses. C. The router's subinterfaces were not enabled with no shutdown. D. Inter-VLAN routing requires layer 3 switches, not routers. Answer. Correct answer. 8 switches faster than ONT4 interface is not set to trunk mode. Explanation. For router on a stick to function, the interface connecting the switch to the router must be configured as a trunk port using the command switch port mode trunk. This allows VLAN tagged traffic to pass between the switch and the router. If this is not configured, traffic from the access VLANs won't be forwarded to the correct subinterfaces on the router while IP addresses are needed. They are configured on the router subinterfaces, not the switch. Routers can perform inter-VLAN routing using subinterfaces, and subinterfaces typically come up if the parent interface is enabled, so B, C, and D are incorrect in this case. Question 12. Throughout the course of troubleshooting user complaints about slow website access, ISTA Adams suspects DNS issues. All users can ping public IP addresses like 8.8.8 8. But domain name resolution fails. The local router is configured correctly and NAT is working, which is the most likely cause. A DIP server has issued incorrect gateway information, but DNS relay is disabled on the ISP router. C. The clients are configured with incorrect or unreachable DNS server addresses. D. NAT is incorrectly translating DNS traffic. Answer. Correct answer. C. The clients are configured with incorrect or unreachable DNS server addresses. Explanation. If clients can reach IP addresses but not resolve domain names, the problem is DNS specific. This typically occurs when the DNS server IP in the client's configuration is incorrect or unreachable. This could stem from misconfigured IEP settings or manual misentry IEP and NAT may still function properly, explaining why. To 8 succeeds. Cisco ICND emphasizes the importance of DNS configuration in network usability, particularly in identifying the separation of connectivity, Layer 3, and name resolution services. Question 13. The prevailing attitude toward network security and auditing encourages logging critical device activities. On a Cisco iOS router, which logging configuration allows administrators to monitor events in real time as they appear on the console during active configuration sessions. A. Logging trap information, or B. Logging buffer 4096C. Logging console. D. Logging host 101011010. Answer. Correct answer. C. Logging console. Explanation. Logging console enables log messages to be displayed on the console terminal as they occur. This is useful for real-time monitoring, especially during configuration. Logging trap sends messages to a remote syslog server SMP trap. Logging buffer writes logs into memory, and logging host designates an external syslog server for ICND candidates. Understanding the different logging destinations, console, buffer, terminal, and host, is critical for effective troubleshooting and device monitoring. Question 14. To better understand route propagation, ICND configures a default route on RouterX using IP route 0.00000000192.168.0.1. However, the route does not appear in the routing table. What is the most likely explanation? A. The IP address 192.168.0.1 is not reachable from RouterX. B. The subnet mask is invalid for a default route. C. A dynamic routing protocol is overriding the static default. D. The command must be entered under interface configuration mode. Answer. Correct answer. A. The IP address 192.168.0.1 is not reachable from RouterX. Explanation. Static routes in Cisco iOS require the next hop IP to be reachable IP. There must be a valid route to the next hop address. If there is no connected interface or static dynamic route to reach 192.168.0.1, the route is not installed in the routing table. The subnet mask 0000 is valid for a default route. Dynamic protocols do not automatically override static routes unless administrative distances are manually changed. The command is a global configure command, not interface specific. Question 15. Given the circumstances, how does a switch behave when it receives a frame destined for an unknown MAC address that is not present in its MAC address table? A. The switch sends the frame back out the port it was received on. B. The switch drops the frame immediately. C. The switch floods the frame out all ports except the one it arrived on. D. The switch sends the frame to the default gateway. Answer. Correct answer. C. The switch floods the frame out all ports except the one it arrived on. Explanation. When a Layer 2 switch receives a frame with an unknown destination MAC address, it floods the frame out all ports except the one it was received on. This is fundamental switching behavior described in Cisco, and once a response is received, the switch learns the MAC address and updates the table. The switch does not forward back on the ingress port the frame unless explicitly configured, nor does it forward unknown frames to a gateway unless it's acting as Layer 3 switch or has proxy ARP enabled. Question 16. Contrary to popular belief, not all VLAN traffic automatically traverses trunk links between switches. Which configuration is essential to ensure that VLAN 30 traffic is carried over? A trunk port on a Cisco switch. A. Ensure that the trunk link is configured in dynamic auto mode. B. Assign VLAN 30 as the native VLAN. C. Add VLAN 30 to the allowed VLAN list on the trunk port. D. Set the trunk encapsulation to 802.1 globally. Answer. Correct answer. C. Add a VLAN 30 to the allowed VLAN list on the trunk port. Explanation. Trunk ports only forward VLANs that are included in the allowed VLAN list. If VLAN 30 is not explicitly permitted, its traffic will be dropped even if trunking is enabled. Dynamic trunking mode, like dynamic auto, may not negotiate a trunk successfully. The native VLAN is untagged and has no bearing on other VLANs unless there's a mismatch. Trunk encapsulation must be set per interface and is not global. According to ICND, precise trunk configuration is key to successful VLAN propagation between switches. Question 17. From a historical standpoint, the practice of subnetting has evolved from classful to classless addressing. Given the IP address 192.168.1.130.26, what is the valid broadcast address for the subnet? A. 192.168.1.255. B. 192.168.1.191. C. 192.168.1.128. D. 192.168.1.192. Answer. Correct answer. B. 192.168.1.191. Explanation. A 26 subnet has 64 addresses, 26 which gives 192.168.1.128 as the subnet ID and 192.168.1.191 as the broadcast address. Usable host IPs range from 192.168.1.129 to 192.168.1.190. Subnet. Foundational in the ICND curriculum and is necessary for route summarization, efficient IP usage, and network segmentation. Option is the broadcast for a 24. Option C is the subnet ID. Option D is the start of the next subnet. Question 18. Through the lens of Cisco switch operations, what happens when a switch receives a frame with both the source and destination MAC address located on the same interface? A. The switch sends the frame out all interfaces. B. The switch drops the frame silently. C. The switch forwards the frame only if it's a broadcast. D. The switch floods the frame to all VLAN members. Answer. Correct answer. B. The switch drops the frame silently. Explanation. If a switch sees both source and destination MACs mapped to the same interface, it assumes the devices are on the same segment. There's no need to forward the frame further, so it's dropped. This avoids unnecessary traffic. This is an optimization behavior known as frame suppression in Cisco OS. Flooding or broadcasting is reserved for unknown destination MACs or broadcast frames. Drops ensure efficiency without logging unless explicitly configured otherwise. Question 19. Across different scenarios, network engineers use network time protocol (NTP) to ensure accurate time stamping. Why is synchronized time particularly important in enterprise networks using syslog and ACLs? A. To encrypt ACL entries with time-based keys. B. To allow time-based ACLs to match accurately and logs to be chronologically valid. C. To match VLAN ID changes with NTP offsets. D. To reset MAC tables at scheduled intervals. Answer. Correct answer. B. To allow time-based ACLs to match accurately and logs to be chronologically valid. Explanation. Accurate time is critical for time-based ACLs, which rely on the router's clock to permit or deny traffic during specific intervals. It's also essential for syslog accuracy, ensuring that log entries can be traced and correlated across multiple devices. ICND introduced NTP to reinforce time synchronization in device management and security auditing. Options A, C, and D are unrelated to NTE. Question 20. In response to an audit requirement, ISNOVOC must ensure all Cisco devices are accessible via SSH for remote management. After generating RSA keys and configuring domain names and usernames, she still cannot connect via SSH. Which final configuration step is most likely missing? A. The enable secret password is not set. B. The transport input command under VTI lines is missing SSH. C. The hostname is incorrectly configured. D. The console port is misconfigured. Answer. Correct answer. B. The transport input command under VTI lines is missing SSH. Explanation. To accept SSH connections, The VT lines must be configured with transport input SSH. If it's set to none or only telnet, SSH will be rejected. ICND emphasizes securing management access, especially for remote access. Although domain name and RSA key generation are prerequisites, access is blocked unless explicitly permitted on the VTI lines. The enable secret secures privileged mode but isn't required for SSH access. Hostname and console port misconfigurations wouldn't prevent remote SSH, RSA, and user credentials are present. Question 21. The foundation of standard access control configuration lies in understanding traffic direction. Mr. Ortega is asked to apply an ACL that denies traffic from the 192.168.100.24 network to a specific server but allows all other traffic. He applies the ACL in the inbound direction of the router's faster than its zero interface, which connects to the internal LAN. Users report complete loss of connectivity. What is the most likely reason for this behavior? A. The standard ACLs filter only by destination IP address. B. The standard ACLs should be applied outbound on the external interface. C. There is an implicit deny, all at the end of the ACL. D. The ACL must include a permit IP any statement at the beginning. Answer. Correct answer. C. There is an implicit deny, all at the end of the ACL. Explanation. All ACLs in Cisco iOS have an implicit, a deny all at the end. If the ACL has no explicit permit statements after a deny, then all traffic will be dropped. Standard ACLs filter based only on source IP, not destination. Therefore, if Mr. Ortega denied the source subnet without allowing other sources, all traffic is denied. According to ICND concepts, placement and structure of ACLs are crucial, especially the understanding of the implicit deny. Question 22. By comparing traditional and modern networking devices, which component is responsible for providing layer 3 routing between VLANs in a collapsed core network design? A. Switch operating in layer 2 mode. B. Hub connecting multiple devices. C. Router on a stick configuration. D. Layer 3 switch with a SPIS. Answer. Correct answer. D. Layer 3 switch with a SPIS. Explanation. In enterprise designs, a layer 3 switch with switched virtual interfaces, SPIS performs inter-VLAN routing without needing external routers. This setup reduces latency and improves performance. Router on a stick is valid but not scalable for high-performance networks. Hubs are layer 1 devices and cannot route. Layer 2 switches do not process layer 3 logic. Cisco's curriculum addresses the scalability and design benefits of using layer 3 switching in modern environments. Question 23. The central argument for using dynamic routing over static routing in large networks is built around operational efficiency. Which of the following represents a disadvantage of using static routes in dynamic environments? A. Static routes are preferred by default over dynamic ones. B. Static routes do not require administrative configuration. C. Static routes must be manually updated after topology changes. D. Static routes increase CPU and memory usage. Answer. Correct answer. C. Static routes must be manually updated after topology changes. Explanation. Static routes are fixed and do not adapt to network changes in dynamic environments. This leads to routing black holes or misrouted traffic unless the administrator manually reconfigures them. Dynamic routing protocols OSPFIGUP automatically respond to changes. Static routes are actually less CPU intensive, making D incorrect, but operationally more rigid. They do require manual setup, making B incorrect. According to Cisco, choosing routing methods should be based on topology stability, scalability, and administrative overhead. Question 24. To determine whether Cisco router is booting from the correct iOS image, which command should be used to verify the current image being used during runtime? A. Show interfaces. B. Show running config. C. Show version. D. Show IP route. Answer. Correct answer. C. Show version explanation. Show version provides details about the iOS image in use, uptime, system architecture, and memory. It is the definitive command to verify iOS version and image source. Show running config shows the active configuration but not the actual image file loaded. Show interfaces and show IP route relate to connectivity and routing, respectively. Managing iOS images is part of ICND infrastructure maintenance objectives, where verifying image source and version ensures consistency in operations and upgrades. Question 25. While examining the impact of NAT, which of the following is a primary disadvantage of using NAT in a modern enterprise environment? A. NAT eliminates the need for IP address conservation. B. NAT prevents the use of private IP addresses. C. NAT can interfere with end-to-end connectivity and encryption. D. NAT provides insufficient control over IP allocation. Answer. Correct answer. C. NAT can interfere with end-to-end connectivity and encryption. Explanation. NAT modifies IP headers, which breaks end-to-end connectivity, particularly for protocols like IPsec that rely on intact header information. This can complicate VPNs and encrypted sessions. NAT is designed to conserve IP addresses, not eliminate the need. So, is incorrect. It enables private IP usage, not blocks it. B is incorrect. IP allocation is typically managed to AEP or manual assignment, not NAT. D is unrelated. Cisco's NAT discussions outline these trade-offs in depth. Question 26. From a historical standpoint, Lin forgets the privileged exec mode password on a Cisco router. He performs password recovery using Roman. What step must he take to ensure the startup configuration file does not load and lock him out during boot? A. Issue the reload command. B. Change the configuration register value to Xerox. C. Format the flash memory. D. Enter setup mode using setup. Answer. Correct answer. B. Change the configuration register value to Xerox. Explanation. Setting the configuration register to Xerox during Roman bypasses the startup configuration, allowing password recovery. After boot, the config is copied into running config, the password is reset, and the register is changed back to Xerox. Formatting flash would erase the iOS image. Reload is used afterward. ICND emphasizes known Roman procedures for emergency access and recovery. Question 27. A detailed analysis of Cisco routing tables reveals multiple routes to the same destination if two routes exist, one learned via RIP and another static. What determines which route is placed in the routing table? A. The metric value of each route. B. The administrative distance of each routing source. C. The subnet mask length of the routes. D. The router always prefers dynamic over static routes. Answer. Correct answer. B. The administrative distance of each routing source. Explanation. Cisco routers prefer routes with the lowest administrative distance, and static routes have an add of 1 by default, while REPI routes have an add of 120. Thus, the static route will be installed in the routing table. Metric affects route selection within the same protocol, not across different ones. Longest prefix match subnet mask applies only when at equal. According to Cisco's ICND, understanding at is critical when evaluating route preference. Question 20. In response to a compliance request, Mr. Ibrahim needs to document all directly connected Cisco devices. He enables CDP on all interfaces. Which command displays the details of neighboring Cisco devices? A. Show interface status. B. Show up. C. Show CDP neighbors detail. D. Show MAC address table. Answer. Correct answer. C. Show CDP neighbors detail explanation. CDP neighbors detail provides information including device ID, IP address, platform, and capabilities. It's layer 2 discovery tool used internally by Cisco. Show up map IP to MAC addresses, not device roles. Show MAC address table lists learn MACs on switch ports, and show interface status lists physical state. CDP is essential in Cisco device management. Covered ICND's device discovery protocols. Question 29. The most significant aspect of IP addressing is its hierarchical design. Which of the following represents a valid global unicast IP address? The FF1B, FE1C, 2001 DE 121D. Answer. Correct answer. C. 2001 EPO 12. One explanation. Global unicast IP addresses begin with 2000. 3. Option C falls within this range. FF1 is invalid, doesn't exist. FE1 is link local address used for communication on the same segment. 1 is the loopback address. Cisco teaches IP address types. Global unicast, link local, multicast, and loopback, along with their usage, address, scope determines forwarding behavior. Question 30. With respect to interface verification, which show command provides real-time packet and error counters, interface status, and bandwidth usage for a specific interface A. Show interface jig on B. Show running config C. Show IP interface brief D. Show VLAN brief. Answer. Correct answer A. Show interface jig on explanation. Show interface provides detailed statistics like input-output packets, errors, bandwidth, and line protocol status. It is crucial for diagnosing performance or physical layer issues. Show IP interface brief provides a summary but not error counters. Show running config shows configuration but not statistics. Show VLAN brief is related to VLANs, not interface traffic. ICND students must master these commands for operational diagnostics.